which you can find wherever you get your podcast.
Where do you get your podcast, Matt?
Only from us, Chris.
Only the finest in Bill Simmons podcast products. It's the Bill Simmons podcast. Also, I'm pretty sure he was trying to say wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah.
But he never says the T or oftentimes the K when he's making a plural if there's an S before the final consonant. And that's why he says wherever you get your singular podcast. It's the Bill Simmons podcast. I'm Chris.
And I'm Matt.
Matt, only 2 podcasts last week. Well, more like a week and a half ago. However, on the horizon, 3. The first was with Ryan Russillo. It was 2 hours, 22 minutes, and 10 seconds. The second was with Peter Schrager, then Kevin O'Connor, then Joe House and Jack O, by which point I had mostly checked out. It was 2 hours, 5 minutes, and 5 seconds.
The amalgam podcast.
Yeah, but don't get used to it because they're being demalgamated.
Yeah, but it's funny. He made this point. I can't remember if it's at the beginning of next week when they do 3. Last week, time is not a concept I'm familiar with anymore.
You need to go back in a time machine and then pull out.
But he says, oh yeah, we're going to start trying to do 3. It's basically the long Russillo podcast, a 57-minute podcast, and like an hour and 10-minute podcast. So it's still the same amount of time. He just split them in half.
Yeah, which is what we've sort of been clamoring for. I wonder if he was like, I'll be able to increase revenue.
Yeah.
No, not
I can sell more ads.
I could buy more houses. It's the Bill Simmons podcast.
Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen.
I feel like people listen to my podcast.
Matt on the Russillo pod, 1 second in, bad branding.
Today's episode of the BS Podcast on the Ringer Podcast Network.
At 37 seconds, this botch.
Help the heroes in hospitals.
Heroes, we don't care if we say your name correctly. Like this, at 105.
We're also brought to you by TheRinger.com.
That's a commercial for his own company.
Yes, we are brought to you by us.
Pearl Jam at 2 minutes, 34 seconds. At 4:34, my favorite kind of Joe Bluth nominee.
So I'm a great teammate, blah, 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 every teammate. He was a terrible teammate.
The abandoned one.
Yes, he just, blah, blah, blah. He was a terrible teammate. At 7:08.
Remember he...
6th grade girl. Maybe there's a weird Freudian issue with always talking about members. Because members are dongs.
The joke explainer.
I got something to explain for you right here, Matt. At 7 minutes and 35 seconds. Listen to this, then we'll get to Merriam-Webster.
He had really honed down on, I only care about rebounding.
Hone means to sharpen or smooth with a whetstone. Or, in the more figurative sense, number 2 from Merriam-Webster, to make more acute, intense, or effective. So he had made more acute or intense down on rebounding. How does he do this? And also, was Merriam-Webster hot?
Here's the other thing. Even if he had said it right, which I think you hone in on something, right?
Yes.
But can you hone in on rebounding?
Rodman was honing in on the skill of rebounding, meaning making his focus rebounding?
Yeah, I guess.
It would have made sense. It would not have been a good turn of phrase, but it would have been one that linguistically was understandable. At 13:09, more English, possibly involving cowboy themes.
Nephew Kyle sided up.
All right, so I may have put the cart before the horse here. Emphasis on horse. First, he says, Nephew Kyle sided up. Now, I think he means sidled up, or possibly took sides with someone, or decided to join sides. I don't know. And that is sided up. The reason I think, now that is the possible excuse for this turn of phrase. The reason I don't think it's correct is because he goes on to say this at 13:20, 11 seconds later.
All right, so Nephew Kyle sidles up to Robin Givens.
Sidle means to walk in a furtive, unobtrusive, or timid manner, especially sideways or obliquely. So sidle kind of makes sense. You would sidle up to somebody. You would not side up to them, and you would not soddle up to them. Matt, according to Urban Dictionary, the term soddle was originally discovered when observing the specific movements and actions of a specific girl. And this is definitely not in general usage. Soddle can be thrown into any sentence to describe anything to do with a female. Perfect. It's like John, but sexist. For instance, hey, bro, you see how soddily Amanda looks today? And then the response, faux shizzle, I can hear her soddling in from a mile away.
Shizzle.
Mike Reardon, September 28th, 2004. So maybe that's what Bill meant. At 1553, this Buffalo Bill Simmons nominee.
It was very possible. The Pistons ended up, they won 2 titles, and I think that was the right number for them because they absolutely should have won in 88. So,
Do you want to do it or you want me to? Oh, was that 1988 a big fat girl?
I was going to say, was that the right number of big fat girls?
Then at 1606, this sounds like it's a criticism, but I'm not sure why.
and they took advantage of some rules.
The Pistons took advantage of some rules. Isn't that what you do? Like, you're like, well, here's the rules. How do we exploit them? At 1713, wrong preposition.
I'm a big believer of part of being the champ is how you defend it the following year.
I believe of it, Chris.
He does not believe in that concept. He believes of it.
It's like a higher plane of consciousness.
Matt, do you love delicious ice cream sundaes?
Love them.
Have you ever compared anything to an ice cream sundae?
Probably not.
Oh, come on, man. That's a bunch of bullshit. You're always out comparing stuff to ice cream in your day-to-day life, at work, at home.
Oh, yeah, right.
At 2024, so does Bill.
I think when he got left off the dream team, that was the cherry on the sundae of that persecution complex.
So when Isaiah Thomas felt like he was being persecuted, he was like, okay, fine. The fact that people hate me, that's the ice cream. The fact that players take shots at me, or I don't know, the media takes shots at me, that's the bananas and the hot fudge. But I'll tell you what, for this delicious persecution complex sundae, it is not complete without the sweet flavor of a cherry, which is being left off a team that I desperately wanted to be on.
Yep.
At 2134, Matt, this harkens back to something you were a huge fan of last week that dealt with crowds.
They could do anything. They could go big. They could go small. They play fast. They could play small.
Did you hear it, Matt? Let's go through those one at a time. Here's what they can do. Big.
They could go big.
Small.
They could go small.
Fast.
They play fast.
And small.
They could play small.
He's thinking, okay, let's do size. All right, fine. Big, opposite of big, easy. Small. All right, now how about speed?
Speed.
Sure. Fast, opposite of fast, small.
Small.
At 2341, this Joe Bluth nominee.
He is, to me, like the all-time ultimate.
At 2507, listen to these times.
Because a lot of these times with documentaries, you can have.
Which times?
These
The
times.
times when there are documentaries? Time's up, Bill. I don't know. That's stupid. I'll leave that out. Man, that'll go in the fucking pile of bullshit. At 2930, another Buffalo Bill Simmons nominee.
You know, when Michael Jordan in the 90s is judging your lifestyle, that you've made some bad choices.
That one was lengthy.
At 3250, this Joe Bluth nominee.
I talked. The whole point of the draft is.
Possibly, does he say the poll point?
The whole point of the draft.
The full point.
At 4206.
Bill, in or out? I'm like, out.
Bill, are you in or out on making sense?
Out.
Listen, all I got to do is just throw it to me. Then I'll say something witty like one syllable. Then everybody will stand up and applaud and just dump buckets of money at my feet. 4324. This is the sign of a boss.
This sounds like a challenge for Jason Gallagher of The Ringer to just do combine highlight tapes.
What would
of
your
all
five
the Ringer
be?
personnel?
This is what I want my employee to do. Come up with the 5 times he thought I was great. Can you do that for me? Man who depends on me for his livelihood and survival.
And if you believe there are more than 5, I'll understand.
Sure, yeah, we'll give you a little bit of leeway on that, Jason Gallagher of The Ringer. Matt, I'm not a geneticist. I don't pretend to be a geneticist, except for one time I answered that weird missed connections Craigslist posting. But I don't think Bill is getting the building blocks of all life correct when he uses it here at 5649.
You've succeeded for long enough, and you've developed a certain type of DNA with your players.
It's just poorly used. A team does not develop a certain type of DNA with its players. If you're going to use this cliche, you can say that the team has a certain kind of DNA. But for you to have a certain type of DNA with your players, what does that mean?
I don't know.
After hours, when the game's over and the lights are out, these fucking guys just head out to the science lab with a couple of computer nerds and some test tubes, and they just start working on double helixes. At 101.29, this laughter. More sinister, slowed down. At 103.30.
I feel like every Sunday we're talking about momentum for the basketball.
What do you call it
Mente.
when you have a certain amount of inertia, but also you want to have a souvenir?
Momentum.
I don't know. At 105.28, this swallow.
Chance to make it from the teams that were either.
At 113, is this how the NBA playoffs will function?
Are these our 4 main awesome courts that we're going to have the TV in?
So there are a bunch of awesome courts,
Yes.
but which ones are the 4 main ones? And they also have to be the ones that we're going to have the TV in.
It makes no sense to have 4 courts. Isn't the whole idea that you're trying to salvage your revenue by showing every single possible NBA game? And then they're like, no, we'll just do these 4 courts and play 4 games all at once? Which is also antithetical to social distancing.
Courts.
It's crazy. Maybe he's thinking of like Bangor courts. What are some other cities in Maine? I'm out. That's my list.
Portland.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Portland. These are our 4 main.
Okay, I got it.
At 113.10, etc.
Et cetera, et cetera.
I like this idea to incentivize an NBA postseason tournament at 116.36.
You could just have a prize or whatever, or just have them play.
Yeah, just roll the ball out. They'll do it for the love of the game. Matt, this is Bill's promotion for his new show from The Ringer called The Concierge, or TV Concierge, something like that. This is at 123.33.
This show's about to happen. Here's what we've heard. Should you watch it?
So not, I have seen this show, and here's my opinion. This is, I have seen the promotional materials for this show, and my opinion, after 2 to 3 minutes worth of what the producers of the show think is the absolute pinnacle, here's now what I think you should do. So stupid. Who's going to tune into that?
Listener, if you tune into that, I don't know what to say about you. I can't decide if I want to watch Ozark. Well, I heard Bill Simmons has a podcast where he watches the trailer and then he tells you what he thinks of the show.
Bill, in or out on Ozark?
Out.
Oh, surprise. At 123.58, this swallow.
Pods. What are you watching?
At 124.17, this laughter.
But
It was a closed mouth laugh.
Those are also very frightening.
Yes.
Slowed down. At 132.56, this is not how cracks work.
It's one of his best shots, and you're right. Lost in the cracks.
I don't think you lose things in the cracks. Something can fall through the cracks. Something can be
really big
lost
cracks.
in time, but I don't think it gets lost in the cracks. At 134.10, multiple C's.
Carve them up.
At 138.45,
He doesn't totally have his jump shot, but what he has is over and over again. And what I mean by the small ball thing is just like,
what does he have?
Over and over again.
I kept waiting for him to say, what he has, comma, over and over again, he does this thing, or he has this thing. What he has, over and over again, nothing.
Yep.
At 139.16,
they must have saw something in the scouting thing.
come on, man, they must have seen. They must have seen. Here are my notes at 149.18. Benched for Frankie Johnson.
He gets benched for Frankie Johnson.
Yeah, pretty accurate.
Eh.
I think he means benched. At
Yeah, I got it.
152.49, this swallow.
Feels like the finals. I felt watching it.
At 202.58, it's a picnic of idiocy, starting with this 6th grade girl.
you know, it's,
Well, remember
it's towards the
Soddle
end
3?
here.
Remember.
Remember,
Then there's a
right.
discussion of cold cocked.
Soddle 3 cold cocked him.
A lot of C's in cold cock there, Matt.
That was a huh.
Now keep listening.
Okay,
and
so-
you can find it. They get into it. He open hand slaps him.
A cold cock, per Google, to knock someone out, typically with a blow to the head. Per Merriam-Webster, they actually have cold cock in Merriam-Webster, a real dictionary. To knock unconscious. Open-handed slap. He doesn't know what a cold cock
He
is.
smacked him across the face.
At 203.32, confirmation that it was definitely not a cold cock.
It's a
Soddle
slap,
3?
though. It's
Right.
like an open hand,
And-
old school slap.
What makes it an old school slap as opposed to, I guess, a new school slap? Definitely not a cold cock. If you just slap somebody in the face, you definitely are not cold cocking them. At 207, I'm not sure if this is what Bill means.
I honestly enjoyed every shot he took except for 2.
I mean, he's got to mean approved of. There's 2 shots where he was like, just wasn't fun to watch. All those other ones, hilarious. But those 2, nah, just not a pleasure. The shots that were a pleasure, how was that expressed personally?
Barkley was just doing whatever the defense took.
There was a defense.
Yes.
They took something. Whatever they took, Barkley did.
So, like, for instance, if the defense took layups, then Barkley would shoot layups. If the defense took facilitating the offense with assists, then that's what Barkley would do. Very cagey. I mean, that is a high basketball IQ to do whatever the defense took. Matt, if you were to combine the most famous Vincent van Gogh, or possibly Van Gogh, painting with a particular subsection of the United States, I think you would end up here at 216.33.
That's a starry state to be in.
You're in a starry state.
The best part is when he starts to say state, it actually sounds like he's going to say starry again.
Let's hear what that would sound like.
That's a starry state to be in.
I feel
Is
like
that a
you should open
Van,
with the-
what's his name, Van Morrison song? Starry, Starry
No,
Night?
it's
Cat-
Don McLean. Yeah, starry night. Yeah, it's a Don McLean. You got to play that. I like it.
Maybe this is an unnecessary article at 220.07?
Next decade, they would have another tragic team with the Nash's sons.
Unnecessary article, okay.
Unnecessary article.
We'll be back after this.
Bill, in or out? I'm like, computer nerd.
Teeny little super guy pops right up before your eye. He's no bigger than your thumb. Snap your fingers, here I come.
Matt, we use Anchor.fm for the Bill Simmons podcast. Anchor.fm allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, and it's free. Anchor will not only let you record and edit, you can also distribute your podcast to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more through Anchor. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, which is handy for the Bill Simmons podcast. Anchor.fm has everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get started. He definitely had a boner one time in class, and everybody saw it, made fun of him. They called him Boner Bill for like all of ninth grade.
But what was in
And he was an
office,
all-male
Andy's
school.
nickname was Boner Champ.
Boner Jams 99.
Yeah.
Matt, in the second of two podcasts from just about a week ago, maybe a little bit more, Bill Simmons starts at 0 seconds with this bad branding.
Tonight's episode of the BS Podcast on the Ringer Podcast Network.
It's the Bill Simmons podcast. We should know. We cover it as the Bill Simmons podcast.
Yeah, you never hear us saying BS Pod.
Although that like is our Gmail address, Instagram
Yeah, but that's just 'cause
address,
it's shorter.
Twitter, Facebook. But we don't say it out loud. That's the point.
Right.
And he says it out loud. 12 seconds in, I was mystified, and I think this is actually what the script for this promotion reads, but I was still mystified.
Helping businesses find the right people for their open roles.
I couldn't believe ZipRecruiter was advertising that can help find open roles as opposed to opportunities, positions, jobs, openings. And I thought, this has got to be Bill off the cuff, trying to add a little bit of variety to his read. And then at 35 seconds, he says this.
To your most urgent roles.
ZipRecruiter is really asking its ad partners, whatever they call them, to call them roles. And also,
Yes.
urgent roles? That sounds like a bad
Most
diner
urgent
situation. We got a problem on table 12. We need some rolls over there, stat. Copy that. Urgent rolls to 12. At 1:51, I have Just Happened of Seasons.
15-minute mini podcasts about different TV series that either just happened of seasons or
The best part is you write your notes down, and then we're like, I don't know. What does that mean? And then he just says it verbatim.
Yes.
You're like, oh, okay, it just didn't fucking make any sense.
At 4:37, just before Pearl Jam, more bad branding.
the BS Podcast is coming up right now.
Pearl Jam, finally, at 4:41.
Oof.
The worst part about failing to record the legitimate audio track and having to rely on the Zoom audio track is that we get an extra 2 to 3 minutes of useless preamble before we get
Yes.
to Pearl Jam.
Where he tells you how he messed it up.
At 5:46, it sounds so cute and collectible, this stadium.
You can't do like a little bubble tiny stadium.
An axiom of how you do English adjective lineup. And he's doing size, and then descriptor, and then size. Little bubble tiny stadium. It's like, you remember the old weird cartoons, I think maybe on PBS or something? Teeny little super guy.
Yes.
But the tiny, when it lands there, man, it's
same.
just bizarre. At 5:57, Matt, we don't tend to go after guests. If they do something egregious or perhaps like repeat the word obviously 11 times, we might make a point of it. Listen to Peter Schrager's throat at 5:57.
Hey, look, I think the last touch with football was
I can't believe they didn't just say, Hey, Schrager, why don't you just say that one more time at the beginning? I mean, it sounds like it's a bit.
It was like he was fucking Palpatine or something.
It was weird, and I thought, oh my God, are we gonna have to listen to like 35 minutes of Peter Schrager? Sounded like he's burbling up from the swamps of Dagobah. Nope, he just had to clear his throat and didn't. And then they're just like, yeah, that's fine.
2 Star Wars references there.
Pretty sure you inspired mine. I'm not trying to be too personal here. You're a man with one full set of hands, correct?
Yes.
You have how many hands on each of your sides?
1 hand on each side.
So that's one on the left and then one on the right. Am I correct about that?
That's correct, yeah.
All right. Tell me if this makes sense here at 7:35.
I'm sure he's got like at least one right-hand man at the NFL, maybe 2.
Is that how right-hand men work? You can have more than one? Seated at the right hand of the Lord, Jesus, and also Mike. You don't get more than one right-hand man. Man, I've missed this since the end of football season, but I'm glad to hear time zones again at 15:34.
Start the first game at 4:00 ET.
Just feels like things are back to normal.
Yeah.
Now, Matt, you remember those 4 Maine awesome courts?
Yeah, the Maine awesome ones.
At 16:47, we get to hear about these.
So that's 4 fields, state of the art.
There's 4 fields, state of the art.
He loves him some state of the art. All right, 1947. Try to parse this out.
The NFL draft to me was what got me thinking about this.
So what got Bill thinking about it, in his opinion, was the NFL draft. He's not sure if that's true or not, but as far as he's concerned.
But to him, it was.
Yeah.
It's the truth to him.
Yes. At 22:03, this Joe Bluth nominee.
Ultimately, money is going to be the deciding factor for every decision they make for themselves.
Say, Matt, when will money be the deciding factor?
Ultimately?
Which ultimately?
Oh, the ultimately.
Bingo. At 23:14, this should be a sponsor of the Bill Simmons podcast.
I can finally see now that I have LASIK surgery.
Yeah. It makes it sound like he currently has LASIK surgery.
Yes.
Not that he had LASIK surgery. I can finally see now that I have had LASIK surgery.
Yeah,
he said, now that I am in possession of LASIK surgery.
Yes, he makes it seem like it's a thing that once you get it, you now possess it.
At 23:36, more time zones.
We're taping this. It's noon PT.
At 23:43, extra C's.
They haven't come out and really said that.
At 23:59, somehow Peter Schrager has gone from the Muppet-voiced monster at the beginning of the podcast to someone who sounds like he is very romantic.
I do.
It sounds like a Bachelor outtake. Matt, I know how football and football teams work, but not in depth. Pretty superficially. I like to watch it. I like to talk about it, but I don't really know how they work. I'm pretty sure, however, that they do not have one of these at 26:27.
He didn't play, and he was buried in the backup chart.
The pause.
Buried in the backup chart.
The pause is absolutely where you know he says to himself, well, I said the word buried, and then I said he's buried in the backup. And now I'm going to have to figure out how to finish this goddamn sentence.
He should have said roll.
Yeah, roll would have worked. An urgent roll. But instead,
backup chart is like so what happens is you have the football team, and then you have all the players on the football team who start.
yes.
Then there's all the backup players, and there's a chart of those players, and this guy is buried in that chart.
At 28:27, there are definitely words missing.
But there does seem a lot of stuff out there like
There does seem a lot of stuff.
It's like the bad translation of Foreign X-Files. There does seem a battle. I can't even get through it. There does seem a lot of bad stuff out there. Founded by Scully and Mail. Z-Files. Coming to you this fall from Bulgarian Nationalist Television. At 28:34, however, we can hold stuff against him, but listen, not on.
we'll do whatever with the F we on.
We'll leave your uncle's wife out of this when we do whatever the F we aunt. Matt, your reaction at 35:29.
Point that I would make about Belichick, I would say about Howie Roseman. Like, Howie Roseman has his team in the playoffs the last 3 years. He's got a Super Bowl ring and has kind of a pretty good resume where I'll bank on his scouting department.
Wrong. Doesn't have a good reputation. No, he does not have a good. He's actually a bad drafter. He's like a salary cap whiz. He always seems to figure out a way to fit everybody he wants to fit under the cap. But not a good drafter, particularly bad at drafting wide receivers.
At 37-32, Bill Simmons says this.
Who's the clown show champion right now out of the 32 teams?
I actually looked up clown show, of course. That's sort of the theme of this week's podcast. And it does seem like it's something that exists in like popular
I feel like
vocabulary.
I've said it.
But then to be the champion of all clown
right,
shows.
that's the part I never said. We'll be right back after this.
Who's the clown show champion?
Matt, as always, we want to thank the people that support us monetarily, not the people that support us emotionally, because honestly, emotional support doesn't pay the bills the way Josh N., Jeff G., Scott B., Sean, and our friends at College Football Brothers Podcast support us with money. They do it through Patreon, patreon.com/bspodpod. You can also support us as David P. and Scott B. do through Anchor. That's anchor.fm/bspodpod. David, as we always say, you're giving us too much money. Also, I think Scott B. is possibly giving us money through Anchor and Patreon. Scott, it's not worth it. Thank you very much to our producers. I don't like Don McLean.
Why?
I don't know. I just felt like he was didn't have a lot of like soul. He was too big. Claims to fame are Song About a Dead Artist and then a song about three guys that died in a plane crash. Just a morbid deathmonger. That's all. At 38-48, Bill says this.
Notice how much better I sound? God, I'm an idiot.
He then goes on 11 seconds later to say this.
The ultimate game of one-upmanship. No one stays at the top for long.
Does he sound much better?
He does not.
Not when he's botching one-upsmanship. At 39:30, unnecessary article.
They also have a streaming app called Showtime Anywhere that I think is great because they have a ton of movies. So if you get this, the Showtime.com, enter code BS.
No, this is not the way it works. One of the ways you can subscribe to Showtime is by going to Showtime.com and entering code BS. But you don't have to. You can get Showtime however you feel like it. And regardless of how you get it, you can get this extra whatever the he's talking about. I don't know. I didn't listen that far. Matt, a crazy insight into Bill's personal fastidiousness at 40-47.
There's no amount of gel I can put in it that can tame it.
Now, Matt, you actually do put gel in your hair.
Not anymore.
Oh, yeah, because you got the quarantine buzz cut.
Yeah.
It looks good. You look faster. Also, just a little bit sling bladey.
You mean? I can't say that. It's like that guy was retarded, Chris.
Well, he was. I'm talking about his hair only, Matt. But his hair did look like a retard. Matt, have you ever played the famously intellectual game, board game, chess?
I've heard of it. I think I played it on occasion.
You've heard of chess? Yeah, I also have. Are you aware of how many players play it at any single time?
I think more than two would be really difficult.
I think so, too. Bill, on the other hand, has some other plans at 43-34.
Players, owners, networks, those three chess masters on this chessboard will be the ones determining what happens.
If he had just managed to say those three chess masters, he would have sounded like an idiot, and we would have made fun of him. But then to go on to say that they are three chess masters on the same chessboard.
Yeah, well, that's the best
How's
part.
that going to work? Maybe it's like two of them are on one side, and one of the chess masters is like looking over the other chess master's shoulder at the chessboard and is like, I wouldn't move that king's rook to that square.
But they're still not on the chessboard.
No, that's true.
Who plays chess on the board? It seems like that would make it difficult to move the pieces around.
What was the game that Chewbacca played against Luke, and then Ben Kenobi was like, let the Wookiee win?
It's called, I want to say Sarlacc, but that's the beast in Jedi.
Yeah,
but it has like a double A or something like that. The game is called Dejaric, but also known as Holochess.
How many people play holochess at once?
Just two. And you let the Wookiee win because he'll pull your arm off.
45 minutes in, you know what the most important thing that Rocky trained with in Rocky IV was?
No.
Here's the answer.
You might need to go to a remote location, have some props to train.
It's props. Not equipment, not weights, it's props. At 49-29, let's talk about what's official and what's not.
As
It's
you mentioned,
official.
I mean, yeah, it's like official but non-official.
It's officially unofficial, yeah.
What he means is it's unofficially official.
Yes. If something is officially unofficial, it just means it's unofficial.
This is another mystery note at 50-36.
And they could just kind of squeeze you in because you're already there at the cap figure R versus.
They could squeeze you in because you're already there at the cap figure R.
The cap figure R.
Attach slot S into cap figure R. That's where you're squeezed in. Perfect. Maybe?
I love it when his brain can't catch up to his mouth. Or possibly the other way around.
Yeah. At 56-27, redundancy.
And that would be your reward advantage for in the season.
Can you think of something where you would have an advantage that was not rewarding? Well, your advantage is we're going to have to pile you with 50 pounds of lead shot and put it in a backpack. That doesn't sound like it's going to make me better at things. At 58-50, this Joe Bluth nominee.
Yeah, see, that's the part. Nobody for some reason has written the definitive reported story of how this works.
As he's stammering, what he's trying to explain is, I don't understand something because no one has told me yet.
Yes.
At 59-36, we noticed, Bill.
Notice the disdain I said with that whip.
Come on.
The disdain he said with that with. At 59-45, my notes actually say, LOL maniac. It's a frightening laugh, even more frightening than normal for him. 104.06, tongue way behind brain.
They end up winning the finals. Other than that,
I think if you listen to it closely enough, he does say win the finals. So maybe that's okay.
Win the finals.
At 104.53, time and one's legacy are fleeting.
the longer you stop playing, the more people forget.
Not the longer it's been since you stopped playing, just the longer you stop. How long can you stop playing? This is Sarlacc-esque, because if you stop playing over the course of 1,000 years, people will definitely forget more than if you only stop playing over the course of a decade.
I guess.
105.11, subject verb agreement.
How great the 86 Celtics was.
At 105.27, this Joe Bluth nominee.
Well, so for me, I had a whole greatest teams chapter in my book.
At 107.46. Can you win something besides a win?
Against all the teams that won 50 wins or more.
This is like whenever you would say, they picked him at number 17th.
17th.
Isn't that how he did it? Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. At 109.04, this swallow.
Basketball. And Birds taking.
At 109.10, our favorite new Bill Simmons trope.
Pulled them in a time machine and they played the Warriors.
It's like he doesn't understand how something that doesn't exist is supposed to work. He doesn't think you could just have them time travel. It always has to be a time machine.
Right.
And it always has to be a time machine that you get into. And in this case, in order to take the Warriors back to play the Bulls or the Celtics, whoever it was, you're going to have to force them in. By
you got to pull them.
This basketball, because this is a totally imaginary concept that I think breaks all the fundamental physics laws of the universe. But in order to get these people to participate in this time travel basketball tournament, you're going to have to pull them into the time machine. How do you not understand time travel at this point in the pop culture universe?
If you came in from a time machine to advise them,
you just can't say
that's like
time
you were
traveler
always
showed
in
up.
this time machine, but then you came in from it to tell these people about something.
I just came in from that time machine, and boy, are my arms and also the laws of physics tired. At 111.01, this Joe Bluth nominee.
It's like that, or that's like the perfect play to run with those guys.
Matt, have you ever heard of the country Argentina?
I have.
Have you ever heard what people who are from Argentina are called?
Argentinian?
I would also have accepted Argentine, but I think Argentinian is the more important one. Listen to Bill at 116.42.
Argentine.
That sounds like Argentinian.
It makes it sound like a very small version of someone from Argentina. At 117.15, this Joe Bluth nominee.
It's not correct.
At 120.34, again, more small people from Argentina.
Oh, they're Argentinian hitmen.
I can't believe House and Jacko are not like, hey, jackass, our livelihoods do not depend on you. It's Argentinian.
This House Jacko thing was so fucking stupid. It was like these three guys BSing.
Yes, the BS pod.
Yes.
At 121.50, this laughter. At 123.38, Bill says this.
These different recesses and stuff.
Recesses.
At 126.49, Bill's talking about his kid and his kid's recent obsession with NFL players.
He's been really obsessed with trying to figure out who the best players ever were and how many people are on the list.
Now, first of all, Of course his kid is obsessed with figuring out lists of the best players because that's exactly what his dad, Bill Simmons, does. The thing that stuck out to me is his kid is also obsessed with how long the list is.
Yes.
Isn't the list of best players exactly as long as every single player who has ever played in the NFL? Is his kid trying to figure out, well, maybe it should only be a 30-person list. Well, no, maybe it should be a 35-person list. Who cares? He's always trying to add croutons to his word salad. At 134.49, part of this makes sense. The other part is terrifying in its ignorance.
I have always been a believer in UFOs and ghosts, as you guys know.
UFOs, if somebody says they believe in UFOs to me, I don't think about them immediately. You're an idiot. I think, it's possible. I don't think UFOs are necessarily picking up rednecks and, anally probing them on a regular, but it could happen. I think there's probably a pretty statistically decent chance that there's intelligent life somewhere in the vastness of space. Yeah. Ghosts, on the other hand, no, that has no possibility of being based in any kind of science. That's just
best part.
Supernatural.
The best part is then his explanation for it is like, well, it's because my house is haunted. How do you know? Well, sometimes the floor creaks.
At 136.09, I approve of the attempt to be profane, but the execution is lacking.
Empty them fucking mother load. Let's see it.
A mother load can be, according to Merriam-Webster, the principal vein or lode, L-O-D-E, of a region, or a principal source of supply. So maybe if you empty the fucking principal source of supply, it's okay, but that is not really what he means in context.
If he's looking for ways to deflect and distract, this is the time for the JFK assassination. Like, just empty them.
I guess, in context, the JFK assassination is the fucking mother lode or principal source or supply of deflecting data?
Me.
What?
Internet again.
I just heard me in the load.
The beginning of that was kidding me.
Matt, I look forward to slogging through 3 Bill Simmons podcasts.
3 that are really 2.
And also, I would say next week, but they've already happened, so
yes.
Why lie to ourselves or our listener? Oh, we forgot. Thank you, executive producer Pierre.
Yes.
Bonjour. Arrivederci, Matt.
We.
I'm thinking about gelling my mustache out to the side. And then twirling it around.
Yeah. I've noticed that mine is starting to get a little bit like that, where it's not. I probably couldn't quite twirl it, but it's definitely like I can pull on it.
Do you? Well, there's one thing 6th grade health class taught me, Matt. It's that you shouldn't pull or twirl it. But that being said, do you ever sleep funny on your facial hair and then you wake up and it's all...
Yeah, because I sleep on my stomach. So I routinely wake up and it's like looks like I rolled around in a bramble bush.
Yeah, it's all mushed one way or the other. What do you do to fix that? Just mustache gel?
I usually get a shower pretty early, like when I first wake up, because otherwise I will have to like plop my daughter on the bed and have her be annoying while I'm getting a shower. And I use like it's like beard balm or some shit like that. Which somebody gave it to me forever ago, and I've never had an occasion to use it because my beard was never long enough. But now it's like, oh shit, and it works pretty good.
I use beard balm as well. Yeah. It's a Viking brand, which makes me concerned that are they marketing this to Aryans? But I don't know. I guess it seems fine.